Beginning. The room I was never meant to enter. The palace wasn't supposed to be real. At least, that's what Jalen kept telling himself as the shuttle descended through violet clouds and revealed a city of impossible geometry. Towers grew like crystal branches from a luminous ocean, bridges curved in spirals that ignored gravity, and light drifted through the air like snow that refused to fall. He had signed up to fix a broken transmitter. That was it. The Galactic Survey Corps hired civilian technicians all the time, especially cheap ones from frontier colonies who didn't ask questions and didn't charge much. Jalen qualified perfectly. He did not qualify for royal invitations. Yet the docking officer had bowed when he arrived. Actually bowed. Now he stood inside a corridor wider than any street he'd ever seen, carrying a toolbox that suddenly felt offensive against the polished silver floor. "This is a mistake," he muttered. The translator bead in his ear chimed softly. "No mistake, honored guest." The voice belonged to a hovering attendant, a floating ribbon of light that formed symbols while speaking. "Right," Jalen said nervously. "I'm just here to repair the communication array."
Correct.
The Queen values communication. He didn't like how that sounded. Still, work was work. He followed the attendant through halls that changed color as he passed. The walls weren't painted, they reacted, adjusting hue like living things aware of presence. Every instinct told him he was somewhere sacred. And he absolutely did not belong here. The exhaustion that caused a disaster. The repair job took 16 hours. Alien technology didn't use circuits, it used resonance. The transmitter wasn't broken, it was emotionally misaligned. After hours of trial and error, Jalen discovered the system responded to rhythmic patterns rather than voltage. He fixed it by humming. He would never admit that part in the report. By the time he finished, his eyes burned and his legs shook. The attendants had long vanished, apparently trusting he wouldn't steal a palace. He just needed somewhere to sleep before finding transport back to the docking ring.
He found a door.
It opened. Inside lay a circular chamber bathed in dim starlight. Soft layered fabric covered the floor in gentle waves, clearly a resting chamber. He hesitated. No guards. No locks. Probably guest quarters, he reasoned. He removed his boots and collapsed onto the nearest sleeping platform. He was unconscious in seconds. The worst possible awakening. Warmth stirred him first. Not heat, presence. Something breathing softly against his chest. Jalen opened his eyes slowly. Silver strands of hair drifted across his face. His arm was wrapped around someone. He froze. Very slowly, he looked down. For luminous eyes stared back at him. He stopped breathing. She was not merely alien. She was unmistakably regal. Skin glowed faintly like moonlit water, and faint patterns shimmered across her shoulders like constellations responding to her heartbeat. He knew immediately who she was. Everyone in the sector knew. The Queen. The ruler of an entire star-spanning civilization. Currently tucked comfortably into his arms. For 3 full seconds, neither moved. Then both inhaled sharply at the same time. Jalen launched backward off the bed, tangled in blankets, and hit the floor. "I can explain." She blinked slowly. The room brightened. Dozens of hovering lights appeared instantly around them, attendants, guards, advisors, all staring. Silence fell heavier than gravity. Jalen raised both hands in surrender. "I took the wrong bed." The Queen tilted her head, then something unexpected happened. Her expression softened. And she laughed. The law he didn't know. The guards did not laugh. Within minutes, Jalen stood in a vast chamber surrounded by towering figures while trying not to faint. The Queen sat upon a living throne that adjusted to her posture. She regarded him calmly. "You slept without fear in the sovereign chamber," she said through the translator. I slept without awareness, he corrected weakly. Murmurs spread among the court. An advisor stepped forward. Your Majesty, tradition is clear. Sharing the resting circle constitutes a bonded trust event. Jalen blinked. A what? The Queen studied him thoughtfully. It means, she said gently, you experienced unguarded presence beside me. Among my people, that forms a life-binding trust. His knees nearly gave out. You're telling me I accidentally proposed. The advisor frowned. More binding than proposal. Jalen stared at the ceiling. Of course I did. The human problem. Instead of imprisonment, execution, or exile, the Queen dismissed the court. She requested he walk with her. They strolled along a balcony overlooking the glowing ocean below the palace. Floating creatures traced slow patterns beneath the surface like living constellations. You did not intend the bond, she said calmly. No, he replied. I intended sleep. She seemed amused by the honesty. My people share minds during rest. Trust is our deepest contract. You slept beside me peacefully. You neither fled nor harmed. The bond registered. He rubbed his face. Can we unregister it? She paused. Possibly. But it requires mutual understanding of intent. He brightened. Great. I definitely didn't mean it. She watched him carefully. But you also did not reject closeness when waking. He hesitated. Because that was true. His first instinct had been panic, not revulsion. She noticed. That matters to our law. He groaned. I fixed a radio and accidentally married a queen. She smiled faintly. You restored our communication array. Without it, our outer colonies were isolated. He blinked. Wait, that was important. Very. They stood quietly for a moment. Then she asked softly, why did you not fear me? He shrugged. You looked comfortable. That answer surprised her. Learning each other. Over the next days, the palace shifted around him, literally. Rooms adapted to human gravity preference. Food manifested approximations of human meals, and attendants began addressing him as consort guest, a title that made him deeply uncomfortable. The Queen, whose name translated roughly to Saren, spent hours speaking with him. Not about politics, about humanity. You divide yourselves often, she observed.
Constantly, he said.
Yet you cooperate to survive. Also constantly. She found contradictions fascinating. He found her curiosity disarming. Unlike rulers he imagined, she held no arrogance, only responsibility. Her species valued emotional stability above authority. Leaders were chosen for calm empathy, not dominance. And the bond, though accidental, allowed her to sense his emotional state faintly. She discovered humans experienced constant, low-level worry. He learned her people experienced collective loneliness despite unity. Both found comfort in the other. The crisis. On the 7th day, alarms shook the palace. The repaired transmitter screamed across space. A fleet approached, aggressive, unidentified but technologically advanced. Saren stood rigid, feeling the distant fear of her colonies through the network. They tracked our signal, she whispered. Jalen's stomach dropped. My fix. No, she said softly. Your fix allowed us to detect them. Military advisors filled the chamber. We must evacuate the sovereign, one urged. She shook her head. I do not abandon my world. Jalen stepped closer. What do they want? Moments later the answer arrived. A broadcast demanding surrender of planetary authority to avoid annihilation. A conquering species. Saren closed her eyes. They conquer isolated civilizations. Without our communication network, we could not call aid. Jalen swallowed. But now you can. Yes. She looked at him. And the bond requires we decide together. He blinked. Why me? Because trust-sharing forms equal voice. He stared at the approaching fleet projection. He was a mechanic from nowhere, and suddenly part of a planetary defense decision. The human suggestion. Her people prepared defensive formations, elegant but predictable. Jalen noticed something. They're waiting for a formal reply, he said.
Yes.
Diplomacy precedes conflict. He scratched his head. Humans don't always do that. She looked curious. Explain. He grinned nervously. We stall. Within minutes, Saren transmitted an intentionally confusing message. Philosophical questions, cultural riddles, contradictory legal interpretations. The invading fleet hesitated, attempting translation. Hours passed. During that time, her allied systems, now reachable thanks to the repaired array, mobilized. When reinforcements arrived, the invaders retreated without firing. The palace erupted in relief. Saren looked at him in wonder. You weaponized uncertainty. Welcome to human negotiation. The meaning of the bond. After the crisis, the court gathered once more. The advisor bowed. The bond has fulfilled protective purpose. It may now be dissolved if desired. Jalen looked at Saren. He expected relief. Instead, he felt hesitation. Days beside her had been calm in a way his life never was. No expectations, no pretending, just honest presence.
She spoke first.
Our law allows separation when trust no longer grows. He nodded slowly, and she met his eyes. It continues to grow. His chest tightened. You want to keep it? I wish to choose it. Not as accident. He laughed softly. I fell asleep in the wrong room and saved a planet. And found companionship, she added. He considered the stars above the ocean. He could return home, anonymity, routine, noise. Or remain, strange, uncertain, meaningful. Okay, he said quietly. But this time we do it on purpose. She smiled gently, ending the right choice. The ceremony was simple. No grand spectacle. Just two beings sharing wakefulness instead of sleep, fully aware, sitting side by side in the resting circle. No misunderstanding. No accident. Just choice. Their minds brushed lightly, not merging, acknowledging. The bond formed again. Stronger. Outside, the ocean glowed brighter as if responding. Weeks later, Jalen officially declined his return transport. The Survey Corps filed the strangest employment termination in its history. Reason: married into foreign sovereignty. He never fixed another transmitter for pay. Instead, he became interpreter of humanity, explaining jokes, unpredictability, stubborn hope. And every night, the queen of a distant world rested beside the mechanic who took the wrong bed. Except now, it was the right one.